and I just want to let everyone know the Bears did win this week, so we're advancing in the playoffs, and that's for you, Joe V. But morning, fellas, how's everything going?
That's good. Yeah, I've been hanging in there, getting wrecked by my CapEx right now. But other than that, it's a beautiful Monday.
Oh, really? Well, we can dig into that after, but yeah, I like to kick it off. Usually, we like to dig into some of Cody's recent videos. So, Gus, I believe you had a chance to take a look at them, right? And it was about time in the market and kind of simplifying your outlook. Was your last two videos on
Mm.
your channel, right, Cody? Was there one, Gus, that you were more attracted to that wanted to maybe dig into a little more with Cody?
Yeah, there was one he was talking about future planning, and as far as being able to, you don't need this big portfolio. You can have it pretty simple depending on how much cash flow you're looking for each month. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Having a whole bunch of units, it sounds cool. It definitely does, but the stress that comes along with it can sometimes be overbearing. And when you get later on in your years, I think it's about less stress and being more comfortable. So when he brought up those particular points, those are things that I do agree with. Um, um, Actually, I saw some comments. I don't know what happened to the comment in there, but some gentleman was like something along the lines of someone being young and giving advice, that I wouldn't take advice from that particular person. And that just tells you like where we are as a society, where people don't want to listen to the actual messages that are being said. They just hear something that triggers them, and now they just start, putting off negative comments out there. But I think everything Cody said in that particular video is 100% spot on.
Wow, I didn't even see that comment.
I have him. The
Oh,
guy, I think I gave him some smart replies back, so I think he deleted it. I sent
Oh
it
yeah,
to.
I never
I sent
saw
it to.
that.
where? Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to. Oh, okay, here. So here it is, real quick. It says, yeah, I don't think I'd be taking retirement advice from some 24-year-old kid who's never lived through a real estate downturn. All of this sounds good on paper and looks good in a video until the cold, harsh realities of the market give you a swift kick.
Well, joke's on them. I'm 26.
Look, at that time when he said that particular comment, I was like, "Do you know who he is? Do you know his background story? Because there's more than just like a 3 to 4 minute video that he's putting out. He's speaking from a place of, surrounding himself by people who are really doing this job at a high level, and to be able to go ahead and be successful at his early age. I think 19, to be able to do creative financing and things along this line. This is not your typical kid in his mid 20s. This is a young guru that we're talking to. So I think he was just talking out of his butt.
That happens. Everybody's got an opinion.
I do see Ranger 1991 tuning in. He's a newer viewer of the channel, so I'm just giving him Cody's YouTube channel, also Gus on Instagram. But both of them have also been on Bigger Pockets. You can also find their videos on Bigger Pockets if you want to check them out. But Gus, I forgot also. I know you know Cody from school, but maybe Cody doesn't know too much of your story. So maybe 60 to 90 second spiel on who Gus Ophelia is.
Yep. So I currently live in the state of Maine. I'm a real estate investor, and I'm a associate broker. I got into being an agent around the end of 2018. My first full year as far as being an agent, sold 50 houses. Next year, 71 houses during the pandemic year. At that same time, a lot of things were a mystery. I said, hey, I need to build a foundation. So I brought my first fiveplex in August of 2020. Since then, I've sold over 430 homes, and I have 73 units at this current time. So right now I'm in the building stages. I'm really focused on buying properties that make sense, that are going to cash flow. And when that time comes around, when it's time to trim the fat, I have the assets, I have the pieces on the chessboard to go ahead and make that work, and kind of do what you said in your video, be able to pay things down and be able to cut some of the loose fat as time goes on. But I feel like you have to have that first to be able to do that down the line.
That's super smart. Congratulations. And are you doing that with any partners or is that just you?
No, just me. I don't.
That's it.
I'm kind of hard headed and I like full control. So having partners is a little difficult for me.
Smart. You skipped a step that I should have.
Yep.
Because I had built early on by myself, and then I took on partners, and that I learned a lot in that process that you don't really need to experience.
So if you don't mind me asking, so because I've been watching some of your stuff, it seems like right now your partner is only your wife, and you're getting away from, or you might have refied your last few partners out. Is that correct?
For the most part. So I built a business of 30 rentals. I had it by myself for a period of time. Then to scale up, I took on partners on those rentals. And so I got some cash and then kept buying more and more and more and got close to 250-ish rentals, bought some motels, some resort, RV park, apartments. And since then, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I sold out of some of those. I'm down to 130 units. 80 something of those are just my wife and I. And then that's all the bigger properties. It's only a few. It's like a 27 unit, a 39 unit, and a new construction property. And then we have some small stuff in Tennessee where we used to live. So like our biggest stuff's just us. And then we have a couple small properties like sixplex, eightplex, and some other stuff around that size that are with one partner. So it's like a 50-50 deal.
Mhm. Is that the same guy that was on your bigger? Like I said, I dived into some of your stuff where you sat down with David Green. Was it that gentleman, or are we not talking about stuff like that? So I apologize.
No. So Christian and I, we scaled up. He was a partner on almost everything, not everything, but when I met him, he didn't really have any money, and so we decided, hey, let's work together and let's build a big business, and so we did. And what ended up happening is he ended up buying bigger stuff. He did the syndication route in Texas, and so we actually separated paths. He wants to go bigger, which is definitely a viable model, and I wanted to consolidate into stuff that I owned, just my wife and I, and both solutions there, both paths have their own very difficult problems. And so I'm getting through mine right now. I think the biggest problem of owning it all by yourself is CapEx. You can get yourself into a situation where you could blow your wad pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And debt management seems to be the biggest problem for scaling up. So, yeah, we're just getting through that now. But no, I don't own anything with him anymore. He went up, I went down. And I just have like a one off partner for one of my development sites. And then I own a few apartment buildings with another buddy. And that's kind of how it is.
Dope. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So did you jump into having partners because of a need early on, or was it you just did it because it worked?
I do whatever it seems like the next logical step. So I had done stuff by myself, and I didn't at that time. I didn't have the same level of confidence going bigger, and so I partnered with my buddy Christian on the 38 unit that we bought at that time, and I since bought him out. But I ended up doing a partnership, and I was like, you know what, this is working. Let's do another partnership. And then it was like, okay, I found some deals, and I found the money for the deals, and we still partnered because that just seemed like the next logical step. So I created this big convoluted business where I had a partner on everything because it was what I had been doing. But it wasn't out of necessity. In my first 30 rentals that I had, they were cash flowing. Not as much as they are today, but they were cash flowing, and there was a lot of CapEx to do, but it didn't have to get done right away. And so I did it because it seemed like it was going to be a fun adventure, and it was the next thing to do.
I did see a few questions here real quick. A lot of people tuning in today. There was one I wanted to get to. Shucks, sorry, the chat's moving on me. Where was it? Oh, Gus, what are your thoughts on investing in smaller parts of Maine, like Bangor or Freeport?
So I'm in Bangor, so yeah, I definitely recommend that. That's my backyard. I don't invest in other parts of the country. So most of my stuff are 45 minutes from around each other. So I definitely co-sign Bangor. From my knowledge of Freeport, I think that's a great opportunity there. I think some of these towns that, aren't around big cities and things along those lines have great opportunity depending on what's in those areas. So for Bangor, for example, their hospital that they have there, and also the University of Maine being 20-25 minutes away, brings nothing but people to that particular area, and it's affordable. So I think that's why those areas tend to work as far as investment properties, similar to like Pittsburgh with Mark. You find those good niches, in my opinion, they tend to be a little bit better than some of the overpriced markets.
I see Mitch RE Invest is tuning in. So thanks for stopping by. Says, talk about the debt management, Cody. Is it the cash flow is tight, repairs high, taxes or insurance increasing, etc.
It's not just debt management. I use that as an overarching message for like the capital structure. If you keep buying bigger and bigger, it forces you to come up with new structures, or you end up repeating the same structure. And if you keep repeating the same way you did past deals on new deals, you're going to be in a different market than you were when you started. And it's not always going to play out the same way. Like you could roll the same set of dice over and over, and you're not going to get the same roll every time. So what ends up happening is if you keep buying more and more, and you keep doing bigger and bigger deals, what happens is you get these obligations that start stacking. Whether it's you got to refinance the debt product, which is not the hardest part, or mainly it's the people that are involved to do those deals. You have to manage their expectations for return, for payoff, and sometimes what happens is people will have a need to get capital out, and it's in the documents that you have to get them their capital out at a certain time. And if you're not in the right environment to sell or to refinance, you can start pinching yourself. And on those big deals, it's not like you can just go work a job and earn enough money to buy out partners on an 80 unit property. I mean, even for a lot of people, you can't do that on like a 12 unit property. So you can really box yourself into a bunch of problems. Not to say that that's wrong or that that's worse. It's just that can be a very difficult situation to overcome. I mean, if Gus had a partner on his whole portfolio and that partner needed bought out right now, and there was a clause that said you could force a sale, I don't know about you, but I couldn't do that on my portfolio. I couldn't come up with that amount of money. I'd be toast.
No, I agree. I agree, 100%.
But the flip side is on this: if you own it all by yourself, you can get wrecked by capex because it's you floating the bill. If you run out of money, the game stops.
Oh, go ahead, Gus.
No, I think that's why it's very important when you're buying these properties, you're underwriting to the best of your capabilities. So they're making money. And, when these, I just had a bet. It's like every day in winter, it's horrible up here. So we get a lot of issues when it comes to winter. So I just had a backup, and wasn't winter related, but I had a backup of my sewer line that happened in the weekend. Some of the roots are in there, so they had to cut them out. So that's another expense. Plus, on some freeze ups, a tenant turned off the heat because they left to go home because he was a college student, and then the whole apartment froze up, and we had leaks in there. It's just so many things that happen, and when you're the only one that's doing it, you have to make sure you're saving as much pennies as possible, because these problems are going to come along, and if you're not able to maintain them, you're going to find yourself underwater.
Stan is Stan is saying, is Bangor sounds is that on the road to Bar Harbor?
Yes, so Bar Harbor is out by the coast, probably one of our biggest tourist attractions around the area. So we're about an hour and a half from there. So a lot of people tend to get an Airbnb or stay in a Bangor hotel to travel out to Bar Harbor. So yes, it's on the way there.
And then I think Curtis is tuning in, PE turn RE, and he's, the title to the thumbnail for the video is kind of boring builds wealth, but Curtis also wants to say, your story isn't really boring, and I think for a lot of people they don't realize the actual total journey. They may see, Cody's further along than most of us, but it may seem a little boring now to some extent, right? But it definitely wasn't that way in the beginning, right? So it does take time to get there. But Curtis also has a question for Cody. It says, Cody, what's a first call to an owner sound like? Intention for meeting after work or weekend?
It depends if they're trying to sell their property or not. If it's just an off-market cold call, you got to get through a couple things really quickly. You got to get across who you are and then the reason you're calling. And so when I call an owner, I'm not looking at them as a seller. I'm looking at them as a potential mentor. But I don't want to come off and just say that right away. So when you think about a cold call, something that's going to get their attention is relatability, because relatability, how people can relate to you, is going to determine if you get a meeting or not. That's where you're coming from. So when I was getting started, I would mention, hey, I'm your property neighbor. I have this 12 unit here. I saw you had a 15 unit across the street. This is a legit deal. I ended up buying that 15 unit 5, 6 years after I called them. But I was like, I saw you had this 15 unit. I'm your neighbor. Just want to introduce myself and see if we could meet up sometime, chat real estate. Sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say no. But I'm leading with that relatable point of, I just bought the property next to you. We're neighbors. Sounds like we're going to be neighbors for a long time, because I'm not flipping this place and I'm asking for that meeting. It could be a different point. It could be, hey, I bought a duplex. I saw you on this 8 unit. I've never bought anything that big. How'd you get started? But you got to find something that you did and then note that they've done something that is more accomplished than what you've done, because people love talking about themselves. What are your thoughts on that, Gus? If you were calling to chat with an owner, how would you want to lead that?
I think you're giving a lot of good pointers on there. You want to show them praise. So my situations are more, they're calling me just by me fishing for them. And when they are calling me, one of the biggest things for me is, they're calling me for a reason. They have at least a small spark that they want to potentially sell. So my conversation is like, hey, how long have you lived there? What's the backstory? What makes you want to go ahead and even think about calling me to go ahead and sell? And like Cody said, they want to tell their story, and I'm here to listen and be an investor. And when I say be an investor, I'm looking for my opportunity to go ahead and make something work. So after we talk and I hear their situation, the next biggest thing for me is to go to the property. I want to get a good idea of the property. Some people like to make offers over the phone. I can't really do that at all. That doesn't really work for me. So once I get to the property, then we have further discussions, and I like to wrap things up normally right then and there at the property. I think that's when they're most that they're willing to make a deal, because it seems surreal. And especially if you're able to go ahead and offer them something that works for them, they're going to take it. And another thing, Cody, I heard you say on your podcast, your first Bigger Pockets one, is people want to give back to people who are going to improve things. And I 100% agree with that also. So these people who are transitioning out that I normally buy properties from, they either have the house paid off or they have a huge amount of equity in these properties. And they know, the ride is done. The show is done. We're moving on to either, a home, or we're moving in with family members. And they see someone like myself who's saying, hey, we're going to rebuild, we're going to repair it, we're going to get it back up and running, we're going to put renters in here. And they love hearing that stuff, because one, it's true. That is what I'm doing. Two, we're going to improve something they lived in for so long. And they love the story. So I definitely agree with what Cody said on that.
I think right when we started to, Cody, you talked about CapEx over the weekend, kind of dealing with that, but maybe it's a good time. So Brady is saying perhaps maybe a good time to talk about the importance of reserves, build reserves over time or upfront at acquisition, how to determine proper reserve levels, etc.
The question's going to depend on your model. I've lived life on the edge for almost 7 years and subscribed to the idea when I was getting started from Robert Kiyosaki of only lazy people use their own money, because I had no money. So it was either I was going to have to come up with my own money over a long period of time, or I was going to have to figure out how to do it without that. So proper reserves are not something that I've really ever had. What I would think of as proper reserves, I'll give you an example. On my 39 unit, I spend around 26,000 a month to pay the debt, to pay the operational expenses, pay for everything. On something like that, I'd like to have $50,000 to $75,000 just sitting in a bank account. That should cover most things. Won't cover everything. If the sewer line goes out, and spend 300 grand to replace the septic to a sewer because they'll make me hook up. That would be a issue. On my 27 unit, where I spend around 18,000 a month or so with all the debt and operational expenses, maybe I need 36 to 54 grand. But 2 to 3 months of all your expenses is probably proper. Some people want more, some people want less, but that is something that I'm shooting for on all my properties. It's very important. I mean, over the weekend, similar to Gus mentioning he has roots in one of his sewer lines. On my 39 unit, one of my buildings has roots going, it's probably more than one, but one that I know of has roots going through all the drain lines. So I have to jack up the concrete and redo all those lines and re-pour and then redo the floors. And that's very expensive. So if I didn't have that, what would happen is I'd cannibalize that unit. Basically, I'd move them to another unit. I wouldn't be able to do that remodel. And now my total occupancy would basically go down by 2.5% for the foreseeable future on that building because I could never rent that unit out. And so slowly what happens is the property value goes down and down because you don't have as much income to fix things in the future, and it gets harder. I did that on a 6 unit where I got to eventually having 3 units that were permanently empty because I couldn't get them fixed. It's very painful. So you got to make sure you have a way to pay for anything that pops up like that because you don't want to cannibalize those units and lose income forever. As far as reserves over time or up front, ideally up front. I'll tell you, I've never had it up front. So, I mean, Gus has probably built a safer business than I did, but you do what you can with the pieces you have, and the pieces I had did not involve having all the reserves up front.
And I think when we give our answers, there's no one way to go about it. Where Cody's like, I was living on the edge, but now look how where he sits now. He sits in a, he's a success story. But you might hear someone else, they didn't, a lot of things happened and they weren't able to go ahead and be as successful as he is. I think on my end, I built some capital up as far as being a real estate agent. And also where I'm also am is I bring this up a lot because I think this has been a big part of my real estate journey is the business line of credit. That same equity with each particular property I was borrowing, having that credit line, that business credit line, just in case something major happens. So we talked about, a $50,000 charge comes up, I have to be able to pay that. So not only I do have the reserves for it, but let's say 3 of those problems happen or, 10 of those problems happen. I have to go not only dive into those reserves, I dive into that business line of credit. But, knock on wood, I haven't had to do that yet. But there's no telling what can go ahead and happen. So you want reserves up at the front. You want to make sure your cash flow, you're putting a good chunk of that change for each particular property to the side in case something was to happen. And you also want to tap into the equity as a backup. Now, most times I use my equity to go ahead and buy newer properties. But if something was to ever happen down the line, where if it's a large expense, I have that money there to help me out in time of a need.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, there's no, I would say, perfect way to do it. But I think the biggest thing, and you probably people tuning in probably notice from Gus, myself, Cody, is the biggest thing is you have to have resilience and figure out possibly how to access the reserves or get capital in time of need. So, like I know Cody, you've talked about it quite a bit too. It's just kind of maybe credit cards, right? Not saying that is the best answer, but credit cards was a solution for you at one point, right? 0% interest credit cards, right?
I mean, if it weren't for that, I would have lost a building that today has almost $1 million of equity. Even with my insurance quadrupling and taxes going up and costs going up, it still has just shy of $1 million of equity. I would have lost that building 3.5 years ago had I not had a 0% credit card.
Hey, Cody, would you say maybe not for everyone? So I like to separate some people. There's some people who are looking to scale a little bit quicker and bigger. And that may not be everyone's goal. when you're looking to scale bigger, let me not use quicker, but bigger, you're going to take a lot of risk. You're going to be living on the edge. That's just how this game works. Would you agree or disagree?
It depends on how much information you have at the start, because there's ways to do bigger deals with less risk, to get non-recourse debt, to structure interest-only loans that you may not be able to get on a smaller property. I mean, you can now with DSCR, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's different products for different properties. And if you're going in well informed, you can structure a less risky, bigger deal, from my experience. From a cash flow perspective, if you do your due diligence from a capex perspective, like, you can make sure you're buying deals that don't need a whole bunch of info, or don't need a whole bunch of money put into it. But if you don't have that information going into it, then yeah, you're gonna have more risk. And the way I built it, I wouldn't wish what I did on anybody. It's very hard. But that's also because I came from no real estate info. I didn't have a group like this that I was going to, and I learned it on the fly. So, I mean, people are already ahead of where I started just by coming to stuff like this.
Mitch RE Invest is asking, talk about the credit card play, Cody. What was the play? And this is just like you're saying, it's not advice. It may not have been the best way to handle it, but this is how you got through it, right?
It's the best thing I could have done with the pieces that I had. So I ran my books through Appfolio, so I can speak to Appfolio. I am confident other platforms have this. But in Appfolio, for owners, there's an owner contribution section where you can contribute money from a bank account or from a debit card or a credit card, and you can have it go to the Appfolio bank account for the management company. And so what I ended up doing is I got my 0% interest credit card. They give you those promos, 15 months, 18 months, 12 months. Cash advance fee is going to be whatever it is, 30%, 25%. It's expensive. A credit card processing fee might be 3%. So what I did is I did an owner contribution on that folio with a credit card, and I paid a 3% fee or whatever, 2.95, and I moved the balance from the card to that folio account, and then when they did owner distributions, I'd get that distribution. And now, since I spent the money rather than doing cash advance, I was at the 0% promo period. So I would get all the liquidity off the card for a nominal fee, and then I'd have 12, 15 months to pay it off out of cash flow without paying any interest. So the problem I had back then is I had no issues for a couple of years, but then I had massive issues at one of my first buildings. And in Washington, at least for what it was, is you could go like 3 years without paying property taxes without a foreclosure. And so I was at like 2 years and a certain amount. I was almost at the 3-year mark. And so I took out a 0% card, did that, and paid the taxes. So you look at the history of that building, you see all the interest I paid. It was ridiculous, but better than losing the building. But that was the play. It was just to convert it to liquidity without doing cash advance.
If you don't mind me asking, you were like, what, 19, 20 at this time?
At that point in time, I would have been around 21, 22.
Okay. Where'd you get the idea for the play?
So my buddy at the time gave me the idea. He was like, they have these credit cards, 0%. And I hadn't borrowed a lot of money on credit cards before. And so I just went online and I checked it out. And like Chase had a promo. I think that one was like 15 months. And Umpqua Bank, now Columbia Bank, also had a promo, and I was banking with them. So I put it in an app, and Columbia gave me a card, and I used it. So I learned a lot of lessons on that, not having a credit card before. I didn't know how to set up auto pay or set up my account. And so I actually missed on one of those. I can't remember if it was the first property or the second, but I missed the auto pay when I thought I was set up, and I didn't create an account. And so I ended up paying the default interest to like 29% until I paid it off. So that was pretty lame. But again, you get an idea done's better than perfect. I ended up paying a lot of interest on a small amount of money because the property taxes per year were like $5,000. So it was like 15 grand at whatever percentage that was ludicrous, and eventually got it paid off after, I think it took over 2 years to pay it off. But I learned a lot of lessons in the process, and I didn't lose the property. So for those who are thinking about doing that, set up auto pay. I think it's like 1% of what you owe a month, and there's no interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's great about being in communities like this is you just hear different stories or ways to possibly handle different situations. So yeah, same thing, not advice, but there is companies out there that you can basically they take a fee and I'm pretty sure they charge you like they give you like an invoice for a bill, like a legal service, and that's how you get the credit off of the credit cards. But they take a percentage or they take a fee from that. So yeah,
But
there's
again,
different.
if you're using a PM platform, you should be able to do a contribution. So you could ask your property manager about that. I mean, that's how I survived. That will build a house of cards very quickly if you don't have a plan to pay it off, though. So don't just do it to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the same thing. When I used to work at Bank of America, they used to have this process called a direct deposit with a promotional offer. So you off the credit card. So I was on the phone. So we would take the money. So it would be, let's say they had 20,000, and there was a one-time 3% transaction fee. We would be able to put the maximum amount minus the transaction fee into their account. And then they would have that promotion for 12, 15, 18 months, depending on how good of a client they were with the bank. So it sounds like it's something to a degree similar to that a little bit, or?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, similar. Sounds similar.
A little bit. All right.
Kwame of Osu 2661 is asking, what was the limit of each credit card? I don't know.
What I found is like 15 to 30 grand. That's typical from what I've seen on the properties that I've had. And these were tied to the business, by the way. It wasn't personal. So it was like for the LLC, used the LLC EIN and the business income to qualify.
Charles McCune is asking, ever bought something that you weren't excited about? Gus, what about you?
Brought something I wasn't excited about. Maybe I wasn't excited about the rehab and how long it was going to take and how much it was going to be. But anything I'm going to purchase, I got to see the value in it. I'm not just purchasing stuff just to purchase it. So on my end, I would say no.
I have a couple times, and they were small properties, smallest in my portfolio. So like I bought a duplex from a guy, and the only reason I did it was to move the relationship forward. And later I ended up buying multi-million-dollar apartment buildings from him. So it was well worth it. But I purposely bought something I didn't really want to buy just to show them that I could commit and do it. And it was well worth it.
Now, if I'm in a situation like that, I'm doing the same exact thing. If I could get just a small duplex and get more down the line, I might do that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm working on buying, and it's like an $8 million property seller financed right now from that gentleman. So we'll see if it plays. But I bought some properties like $1 million, 1.7 in that range, and it's always been seller finance 10% down. So
yeah, absolutely agree with that. That's kind of what. So that's what I'm under contract for a duplex right now, and it's not a home run deal. It's a good deal, solid, but I also feel like it's one of those where, you just keeping that relationship going, right? So it's a good deal, and that's how the better deals keep coming my way. So it's nothing that's gonna hurt the portfolio in any way. So that's where I'm at also right now.
Did you own or finance that deal, or?
No. It's just through some of the people we work with in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Let's see.
Like you're stacking up though. You're stacking up on properties, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to do too much. I'm very comfortable at where I'm at. I'll probably, like I said, I think on the other live I'll start talking about I'm definitely gonna start looking also in maybe North Carolina. That's probably where I'll spend a lot of time once I'm retired, or when my son's a little bit older. I love that area. So I don't know. Do you guys do index funds? What are the best index funds to invest in? I'm not sure what, if you guys have other investments that you guys are investing in.
Me, no,
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah, yeah. Fund breakdown. Unfortunately, primarily real estate. Just kind of. I think I don't know. I think you talked about it maybe last time, Cody. Right? A certain amount of net worth you wanted before diversifying into other asset classes, possibly.
I think 10 million is the number. I mean, at 10 million, you're cash flowing 4 to 500,000 a year, and that's passive, chilling. Now, there's some people online that say, "Oh, you only earn 4%." I earn 20% a month, but they're playing with like $100 or $1,000. They're not managing bigger portfolios. Like 4 to 5% on equity and real estate's really good if it's conservative quality assets.
Flavio's even not paying the water bills on time, those extra late fees count. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Yasik makes a great point. It's amazing what some are capable of when their back is against the wall. Creative resourcefulness is what I call it. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I think, for the biggest thing for me when I was becoming a real estate agent, and I was still working my 9 to 5 job. Um, the instructor, when I was taking the class, he said, if you're gonna do this, you want to do it full time to be successful. And then that resonated with me. So I'm like, damn, I'm really gonna have to quit my job. And what kind of situation is that gonna put me in? And I think it's similar to when, I don't know if you guys have ever did this, but putting your kid in the water and letting them try to figure out how to swim. And that's how I felt as far as when I quit my job. My back was against the wall, and I had to figure out how am I going to be successful in this, so I'm able to go ahead and take care of my family. And I think if I never did it that way, and I did it how I originally wanted to do it, like build it on the side, I don't think I'd be at where I'm at right now. So I think sometimes you got to put yourself in situations like that.
Let's see. Oh, Stan is asking, is there a big difference in real estate values between Bar Harbor and Bangor? My wife and I enjoy that area, so we're thinking about properties in that area one day down the line.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference. Bar Harbor is definitely more expensive. If you're able to go ahead and find a deal out there, I definitely would recommend jumping on it. But Bangor is, once again, I would say a more affordable area with good returns when it comes to rents.
Well, I don't know. Did one of you, because I kind of touched on it the last live, and Ranger 1991 is here, and he wanted someone's explanation on money and currency. I don't know his exact. It was for, I don't know if you guys wanted to dig into that a little bit, but um, I think it was money, currency, and derivatives was his question earlier, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to touch on that topic. You guys want to touch on that, or do you guys think there's a big relationship, maybe in understanding of money and currency as a first foundation before real estate comes into play? Do you think? Uh,
Maybe I'm
I
not.
mean,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I mean, I was going to say you don't need that as foundation before buying a building for sure. And as far as finance goes, I was dumber than a box of rocks when I got started. So no, you don't have to know that. But I mean, if you're just asking about different types of currencies rather than like actual money, like if you're thinking about gold and silver being real money versus currencies that they can print or cryptocurrencies which can be traded, none of that needs to be a solid foundation for you to get into real estate. You just have to understand that when it comes to real estate, there's two types of money. There's debt and there's equity. That's it. There's a property, there's debt, there's equity. You have to balance those two, or you either go 100% equity, 100% debt, or a mix somewhere in between that allows you to hold the asset for the long term so you can get appreciation as the government prints more money. That's the game. So I mean, you can deep dive that if you want to, but I don't think that someone who knows a whole bunch about just money and currency is going to outperform someone who just does the work and underwrites the most deals and figures out how to put them together.
K Barnes TM7 says, Gus, what's good? Let me hold one property, I'll give it back. That sounds like it's an inside thing.
No, he basically he's saying, let me get a property for free, and he'll give it back to me. So
Let's see.
for
What?
that other question, me myself, I don't know if this is going to sound bad or not, but I just don't worry about that stuff. I just worry about doing the job at hand, making money and making that money work for me, and understanding where I need to put that money when that time goes on. I know that tends to be a big conversation among some circles as far as the understanding and explaining that. But I really don't care about that. I think that gets forced upon me to care about that. I know I underwrite. I know I find great opportunities as far as deals. I know I cash flow. I know I'm building something that's going to last. Questions like that, for me at least, don't really mean anything to me. I don't know if that's rude or not, but that's just true.
No, I think a lot of people probably feel that way, right? I mean, they're like Cody's saying, real estate is, I mean, honest, it's fairly simple, right? It's, like I said, it's a simple numbers game. It's not easy, not that's why everyone doesn't do it, but it's fairly simple to grasp. Yeah, Brady said agree with both of you guys. Difference in academic. Curtis is asking question. Gus, how would you prospect for clients if you only had after 2 p.m. and weekends? So Curtis is a teacher currently, still yet. So maybe his time during the daytime is a little bit limited, but he's saying, so how would you prospect for clients if you only had after 2 p.m. and weekends?
What I would recommend, I mean, we got to think one thing would be RIAs, your local RIAs, get in tune with some of the local investors. The reason why I say that is because a lot of times investors, like just like for Cody, he brings up his situations where older investors sold some of their properties to him because they like what he was doing. So you get around some of these older investors, they're looking to, I don't want to say pawn off their stuff. They want to go ahead and get rid of their stuff. So they're going to go ahead and sell it. And you may be one of the people that they sell it to. The second thing I would say is after 2, that's plenty of time to go ahead and do driving for dollars. See what houses are depleted around the area. Start writing those addresses down and start finding out who the people that own those particular properties. And you can make phone calls. If you get out at 2, let's say you do driving for dollars till 4, then you got 4 to 8 p.m. to be able to call these people and to see if there's any opportunities with these homes. So those would be some starting points I would just throw out there for people who are looking to, acquire some properties and they're working.
Let's see. Oh, let's see. Let's say, Cody, how long did it take before one of your early deals finally felt like a win?
Well, I mean, it was instantaneous. It was a win. When I bought my first property, it was 12 units. I bought it with no money down. 30-year fixed rate mortgage, no balloon. That's a win right there. It cash flowed, had debt pay down, it had opportunity to increase cash flow and appreciate. So, I mean, that was a win right away. But it took me 5 years before I started paying out consistent cash flow on said asset. So, half a decade. But I quantify a win as going from 0 to the first rental, having positive cash flow, and not having anything invested. That's a big deal. What about you, Gus?
So all my properties are hitting at different times. Like you just said, if I'm able to buy, I brought a 15 unit and I sold 6 units off of that 15 units. And so I got a bunch of cash back from what I originally purchased from it. And that property instantly, as far as the equity and cash flow, was working right at the beginning. Or I might buy a single family home and we may get it done in the dead of winter. So I'm not able to go ahead and get the most amount of money as far as rent. because we're in the dead of winter. So therefore, I may have to take a shorter margin on it. So for maybe at least for a year, depending if they're a good tenant or not, I may only be getting like, you know, 400 or 500 as far as cash flow on that particular property. You know, I'm not going to shake the boat if they're a good tenant. But what I am looking for is either them move out or me creep the rents up to where they go ahead and need to be. So I think different properties hatch at different particular times. I think what I normally hear from investors I respect, and I want to highlight that people I respect, is it takes 5 to 10 years to see properties evolve to their one of their highest points or a good significant amount. So that's how I look at it. I'm still early in my career. I brought my first one in August of 2020. I don't see the big, large lump sum of cash flow to 10 to 15 years later. The subject of this is boring builds wealth. And I think, you know, for people out there that are listening to us, yeah, we might be cash flowing up front, building equity up front, but we haven't seen year 15 yet. We haven't seen year 20. And I think that's when we're going to see, you know, the real money being made at that particular time.
I totally agree. At year 15 on my first rental, because I'm over 6 years in now, I mean, my rent roll's already grown by 5,500, 5,800 since I bought it. And the expenses have gone up a little bit, but the net cash flow has gone up over $3,000 a month. And so in another 9 years, and I expect that property by itself will cash flow north of $10,000 a month, just based on market averages.
Yeah, and when I speak to some of the guys that've been in, there's a guy out in New York, Dan Barrera. We spoke many of times. He's been investing since 1986, and he tells me, Gus, you know, for the first 10, 15 years, you think I'm seeing any of those returns that I'm seeing right now? This is a longevity game. Focus on the long term. You know, these small wins that we're getting on cash flow now, they're going to be pennies to what we're looking at down the line. So that's my main focus. I'm just getting, you know, I think also, I don't want to speak for you, Cody. We're just getting warmed up as far as, you know, what things look like down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets better with time. The problem is, can you hold it?
And that's why I say the game is a survival game. You know, the longer you survive in this game, the longer you survive in the game, the more you're going to see the benefits that come along with it. I bring this up because it kind of bothers me, and if I'm speaking rude, I apologize, but I hear about the crash in 2008, and I think to myself, if you're really an investor who takes this serious, how can that happen? And I can't wrap my mind around it because I wasn't in the game at that time. But I hear some people say that, you know, they went under and things along those lines. But then I talked to some investors and they were able to, you know, get past that era. And because they got past that, they saw things double and triple. I don't know, Mark, maybe you've talked to some people that may have, you know, went under at that time. Do you have a
What
better?
are you trying to say? I'm old or something?
I'm gonna say you're more experienced than me. Well, I'll put it that way.
You know what? I mean, that's a great question though. If I really think about it, I mean, nobody that really comes to mind that I've connected with has ever, you know, lost everything during 2008. I'm sure a lot of people got burned by it, but for most people, that was the best opportunities for them, or it was just they just figured out a way. Like I think even like Dion touched on it, right? He didn't he couldn't sell it. Like he just was there was no opportunity for him to sell it. So it's almost like he had to hold it. And now you look at him, and it actually turned out to work out in his favor, right? So I think that's maybe how a lot of people happen, and it was just kind of like there's nothing they could have done. They're stuck with this property. And then, but now, like you said, 15, 17 years later, it's like, all right, everything worked out, right? So like we're talking about, you know, boring, like Brady said, boring plus time usually going to equal a win, right?
100%.
So I think that's the biggest thing. And it's just, but, and Cody touched on too earlier, it's really, there might be a situation where you're living on the edge or operating on the edge, and And you also, you have to, when your back's against the wall, you have to become resourceful and figure out how to weather the storm and get through it so that you do have more time in this game. But I think definitely the one thing that I think, so even tomorrow we're going to talk about, Brandon's going to be back on. But there's I think a lot of people are looking for that home run deal and just not taking the, especially for their first few deals, they're not taking those little wins and getting their foot in the door. And I think that is so crucial because, as we all probably know, is there's so much after getting the property that you have to also learn, right? And you just got to get in there and kind of figure it out first and then get your feet wet. Um, but let's see, there was a couple questions. Uh, where was, oh, Gus, oh no, tell him that he is always on YouTube and just speaks to a lot of people. Who are you talking to, about me? Just Gus, no chill, I can't even, no chill on Lonzo 2071 maybe. Gus and Cody, did you guys buy your second, third, etc. building owner occupying on low down payment loans? Or did you stay put, stack cash, and purchase your next properties 20 to 25% down? Any preference? Oh, Alonzo. Okay.
I'll answer. So for me, it was being a real estate agent. I was able to stack some capital. So my first four properties, I put 20% down, and then that's when I switched my method to the burn method. After that, after seeing, you know, putting 20% down is a lot of money on four properties. So that's how I started off mine, and it was commercial loans when I started out.
I bought my first probably 130 rentals, 150 rentals without any of my own money down. And that was borrowing down payments for the first handful of apartment buildings and then bringing on partners. So I never stacked capital. I've never had a conventional job. It's not saying that's the right thing to do, but it's what I did.
Hey, Cody, I got a question. So once again, going back to listening to your original podcast with Bigger Pockets,
Mm-hmm.
you were able to go ahead and create these financing deals with houses on the market, not houses, but buildings on the market. Why
Mm-hmm.
did I'm thinking to myself, how was a 19 to 20-year-old kid able to go ahead and come up with these ideas? With, I'm sure there's a bunch of investors and real estate agents, they weren't able to think about this. I was like, that's kind of crazy, and it was on the market at the same time.
People know what, or people do what they know how to do. And there was no one, well, I mean, there's people saying it, but there's no one that was really influencing me to not ask. I I didn't get conformed to the money that I had when a mentor of mine, who was owner of the brokerage I was working at, later he went bust. But he did teach me a lesson. He's like, Cody, you don't need to have any money if everyone else pays for your stuff.
Mm.
That was a very important lesson for my journey, and it remains true to this day. So I just asked for what I needed to get done in order to put the deal together, and they said yes. It was that simple. I mean, if you're in a real estate agent in a small town, because I'm buying in small towns, the town I live in is 27,000 people. The surrounding area is about 50,000. It's not very big. Small town, think here, start business around 10. Nobody's wearing suits. You either have money or you don't. Like, you got the rich and the poor, there's the divide. They're not accustomed to asking for these creative solutions. Like, you either have the means to buy it or you don't. So I was the first one to really ask to put it together that way, believe it or not. And it was on the market for 551 days.
There's a lot of people kicking themselves in the butt because you were able to go ahead and create those opportunities. I know I would be kicking myself in the butt, but congratulations to you, man. That's awesome.
Thanks. And it comes with its challenges, that's for sure.
You know what? I'm just gonna ask you guys this right now. Since so Zuber just sent me a question that someone commented on one of his videos that he wants to dig into. But since you two guys are here, someone's asking, really interesting discussion. How do you personally stay focused and keep executing when negativity shows up? So as we kind of started off this live today, there were some negative comments maybe on Cody's video. I'm sure Gus has seen it all over his social media too. But how do you guys keep executing when there's negativity out there?
I think people are built different. So some people feed off the negativity. So I'm a person that feeds off of it. So if I hear stuff I don't like, or you're critiquing me or whatever it may be, I got a chip on my shoulder, and that makes me, work even harder. Now, I will say I may get in my head about it a little bit, but when I get in my head about it a little bit, I'm thinking, man, screw them. I'm gonna prove them wrong. And when I really don't need to, it's just more about putting them in the ground and digging the hole and digging them deep into that hole. That's my mentality. I don't know if that's the wrong mentality to have, but when you hear those negative comments, it can't just be that one person who thinks that or spewing out that hate or those negative comments. There got to be more. This is what you're saying. You're gonna have to fess up to it when I go ahead and accomplish this, so you can create a new comment, a new hate for me to go ahead and do the same thing. So I don't know if that's the wrong way to think about it, but the hate, I embrace the hate. You need hate to be able to go ahead and get to those next levels. I don't shy away from that.
Some unsolicited advice I'm going to share with Gus, because he said he doesn't want to come off as, the wrong way to do it. And earlier, it's like, I don't want to be offensive. To somebody in 2026, you're going to be offensive.
100%.
And to the right person, you're going to be right. And to another person, you're going to be wrong. And that goes hand in hand with the answer I'm about to give about the negativity. None of it matters. So if you come off as offensive, I would just stop even acknowledging that. I don't think you need to. You've proven yourself. If people are going to either resonate with what you got going on, or they're going to give you the middle finger, or be somewhere in the middle. So I think you got it going on right. As far as the negativity goes, though, I don't think your mindset's wrong either. I just don't care. Negativity, now that I'm out of consulting, because I was doing the consulting company for a while, negativity fueled that business financially. It's kind of like how you're mentioning it fuels you. Well, it fueled the business, because the more hate it got, the more money I made. But now that I'm out of that, it literally doesn't matter. It doesn't pay my bills if people are negative or positive. It feels good to get a pat on the back, but it doesn't pay the bills. And negativity, it's like, okay, well, there's another person that hates me on the list. There's a long list. People either like me or they hate me. It's not really in the middle. So it shouldn't matter.
Totally agree. I think I was talking to Gus before we went live. I go through the weekly comments through Zuber's videos, and we discuss those. And man, people just hate and complain about the weirdest things. Like they'll complain about his microphone, or how close he's talking to his microphone, or his tone, and it's just people just complain about everything out there. But yeah, Yasik says never got hate. What was that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Where did it go? Sorry, the chat move. Never got hate or negative from someone that's doing better than me. Always waiting for the haters to say it to my face. All right, I have to get my son up he has JPO, so he's actually starting school. So we'll wrap it up with two more questions then. Stephen P says, I have a 60-year-old tenant, lived here for 20 years. How do you implement future rent increases when you know they'll be on a fixed income? Oh, okay. Gus, you want to go first?
I have a 60-year-old tenant, lived here for 20 years. How do I want to answer this? How do I plan with future increases? I I think you just got to do it. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's a business. They've been there for 20. I don't know if the person who's asking the question has been the owner that whole duration of the 20 years. If I was the owner for the whole 20 years, I may have a different feeling about it. But if I just took it over within the last, 3-4 years, I got to be able to still run my business. So it's either, you know, I'm hurting myself or I'm trying to be a nice guy. And being a nice guy is cool, but I'm trying to run my business at the end of the day. So I would just continue to do the increases. You know, if something doesn't work out, maybe I can put them into another building. Maybe I can create another avenue. You know, I have enough investor friends. I could start asking them, hey, I got a great tenant, just not working for this particular spot. They pay on time. They're, you know, they're top tier. What do you have available? And I would just try to solve the problem with the answer and solution. But I need to get my increases. I apologize. So,
Cody, you want to add anything to that?
What I've done in the past, the Dion's binder strategy is great. It's a good starting place. Once you move past that, for those who don't know, you can check out Dion's channel. The binder strategy is great. You move past that. Okay, they can't afford anymore. What I've done in the past, I've connected with housing authority programs. There's lots of different ones, government and non-government, that can help with the delta of the payment, the difference. So if the rent goes up $100, there's programs that can help actually pay a couple hundred, and then the tenant saves more per month. That can help them, especially on fixed income. Done a lot of that. In my market, you got Goodwill, Hope Source, Housing Authority, and then there's some other smaller programs that can help out with that monthly ongoing cost. Beyond that, I would move into another building. So something I've done with a gentleman, I've done this with a couple of people, where I would move them from a building, actually sold it, and I knew the rent was going to go up a ridiculous amount. It was going to go from 600 closer to 1,000. This was before rent control. So I moved them to another building, and he kept the rent the same because I could afford to. So you just move them maybe from a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom, or a 1-bedroom to a studio, or whatever it's got to be. If they can't solve for X and you have to get the rent up, that's a great solution. And that unit that was rented for 600, I moved him over, can rent now for 1,000. So that building will make more money, and the other building will not make as much. But because I moved that gentleman to a little smaller unit, I'm not losing as much as I would be if I kept him at the bigger unit.
I would just add, you know, Steven, sounds like you just purchased the home 2 years ago. You know, you got to factor some things into, right? Is there a lot of rehab that's going to be needed to the property? So if the tenant moves out, you know, is that going to be a hit to your, you know, reserves and how much funds you have, right? So maybe for the time being, having this tenant there, paying consistently is more beneficial for you, right? But definitely you also have to look at it where, you know, like Gus is saying, this is a business. You know, you don't want to keep the rents where they're at if it's going to allow you to lose the property, right? Where you're going to be losing money and not making money, and so you got to keep up with the repair. So you got to kind of weigh it in there, right? So maybe for the time being, it might be beneficial depending on how much reserves you have to just keep them there, right? If you have some other things going on, but definitely, you know, you probably want to increase it at some point because, like I think, like even Graham Stephan, right? He's exiting because he never increased any of his rent, right? So he had properties where he wasn't making the money he needed to upkeep these properties, right? In a sense, right? So you don't want to lose a good asset, right? Like Dion is saying, right? By raising the rent. You know, I'll let you guys tackle this. Well, I'm gonna go wake up my son. But where's the one last? There was a question. Where did it go? This question is to Gus and Cody. What's the biggest mistake you haven't paid for yet, but are actively trying to avoid?
biggest mistake I haven't paid for.
You want to go first? You want me to?
You could go.
When I bought those deals with all those partners, and there was time to buy them out, you either have money or you don't. And some of those partners didn't want the cash. So what I ended up doing is I bought some out with cash, and I bought some out with promissory notes, so that whereas the partner would actually sell or finance their ownership to me. And so I built this big business, and basically it was 100% debt, infinite return from day one. Great deal for me, but you got to pay for it. So on a monthly basis, I'm making all these interest payments, which eats up most of the cash flow from the rentals. Not even just some, but most. And I wouldn't say I'm trying to avoid it, but what I'm trying to avoid is selling said assets to pay off those debts. I'm trying to figure out the solution for the value add deals to get a big liquidity event so I can pay down those obligations and tax a building that I don't even own. So I'm taking these obligations and putting it on new pieces of property and letting those properties service it. So I unlock the cash flow from the current ones. Quite the problem I've built, but I am avoiding selling said assets now that I worked so hard to get them. And the play is to, unfortunately, buy a couple more deals in the 10 to 30, maybe 10 to 40 unit range, increase the NOI, cash out refi, and then pay off those obligations. What about you guys?
The 9 unit that I have, at some point we're gonna have to replace the sewer line. Right now, it's working, and we do the maintenance on it every year to make sure the roots aren't in there. But at some particular point, that's going to be something I'm going to have to address. I can address this coming spring, summertime. But that's in the back of my head. So, if I'm being honest, that's something that, has me on the edge a little bit. I don't think it's going to be too expensive, but I just haven't done it yet. And I'll just be honest. Mark, you brought up Grand Stefan. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
So with him, Ryan, was it Pineda?
Yeah.
Pineda. And it's another gentleman that Ryan just had him on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it. I had to get away from it, but it was a lot of negativity when it comes to investing on there. That's where I first found out about Zuber on those guys' platforms. So it was more like and I don't know if you caught it or not on your end, but like saying everyone's leaving being an investor and things along those lines. I don't hear that stuff. So, obviously they're in a bigger circle, they're famous people, but do you guys tend to hear that a lot of investors are getting out of real estate investing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people are probably exiting the real estate space. But like Zuber touches on too, a lot of these guys, they can make a lot of money doing other things already, right? They're um, big presence where they're making a lot of money either online, coaching. They are entrepreneurs. Like Brian Pineda just starts different businesses. Not all of them are successful, possibly, but he just goes down a different path, right? Like right now, I think he's doing golfing, like this golfing business where he's uh, golfing with high individuals, and it's almost like a community that people pay, like a resort type of thing where people pay money, a club, they all golf together. So that's his new business, right? Graham Stefan, I'm sure, is making a lot of money on the YouTube side, right? So they're definitely exiting, because like we talked about, right? I mean, real estate is not easy. It's simple, the math and formula, but it's not easy for everyone. And at some point, it does kind of, they're making a lot of money other places, right? And everything else is making better returns, I guess, initially, right? If you look at the stock market, Bitcoin, things are doing a lot better in real estate. So it is easier for a lot of people to be like, real estate's not for me, right?
So were they really investors? I
Yeah.
hear Cody's.
Well, Pineda was he was big wholesaler, right? He did that was his thing. He used to flip, couches and things, and they got into the wholesale business. And originally, I forget the name of his brand now, but it used to be Future Flippers, I believe, was the original. So they used to do a lot of house flipping, and that was the initial. And then wholesaling was a thing. And Graham Stefan, he was an agent at first. I don't know if he still is an active agent, but he was a real estate agent. That's where he got started. I believe he house hacked in the beginning too. So his foundation was real estate investing, and that's how they built a lot of their wealth. But I think part of Graham's issue is that most of his properties are in LA also.
I
And
did
he
see
just
that.
has all that headaches that he has to deal with. So he's just like, I'm done with it, right? And I'm going to put my money elsewhere.
Yeah, what I get afraid of is young people or people who are wanting to get in real estate hear those conversations, and it deters them away from something that can potentially change their lives. So like I said, I started watching it, and I know these guys are famous and they're up there, but to me, it's just nothing I need to go ahead and hear. I need to hear about people, a Cody story, a Mark story. I need to hear those particular stories to, keep it chugging along and not hear all the, what does Zuber call it? The doom and gloom stuff. I'm not a fan of that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why the one rental at a time, the school community is amazing. If you want to be around people that are heading in the same direction, I definitely advise you to check it out. Come join us. The event is in Vegas. I believe it's a few days away. I'm going to put Gus out there that he only has 2 days left to get his tickets to attend Vegas. Zuber's
I think
going
my
to.
wife's watching this, so I told her about it. I was like, they want me to go out in Vegas, so
All right. So yes, January 15th, Zuber is stopping sales. I believe he said we're close to 300. That was kind of his goal. So we're almost there. And the event is President's Day weekend in February. So any final words from you guys? Where can they find you? I did put your guys' handles in there, but any final words from you guys?
I mean, I'm all good. I think today was a good episode. It's good chatting with you guys.
yeah, I hope from what people take from us is get out there, put the work in, and you'll start to see some results down the line.
Absolutely. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow. Sorry, I got to cut it short. I got to get my son up, but I will be back tomorrow with Brandon Potts. And we have a new guest on tomorrow, Brian Waters. He was just on Bigger Pockets. He's Code 3 Investing. He is a fire captain out in LA, and he'll be joining us tomorrow, same time. So see everyone tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.